And I disagree with Andy Staples here, despite actually liking a lot of his work. My thing is, where's the relegation? Like Northwestern, you are athletically saved, and Vanderbilt, you are athletically saved, and we're going to keep a Pitt out here. And look, I think Pitt's a good brand, but are they TCU? Like, are we valuing the market of Pittsburgh more than we are Dallas, Fort Worth? And Robbie, you're the guy that took TCU at number 1 overall when we drafted out Big 12 brands here recently. Like, how do you leave a brand like that off the table? And even take in somebody who mentioned like Texas Tech and the SEC. What are we doing here? It just doesn't make sense in my brain.
Yeah, and that's where I was really confused about that as well, because we just saw TCU in the national championship. We just saw them in Dallas. And I think when it comes to making a super league, if they were to take teams, I think a lot of it has to do with the location of where it is, because West Virginia is technically in this super league that Andy Staples is proposing. I don't think West Virginia is necessarily this major market, but it is the school of a state, and they do have some type of history, and they do have, I think culture to fit the SEC. But no, it is definitely confusing. And this is where I think we really need to kind of understand what exactly are the brands in the Big 12, because to us, TCU can be a major brand moving forward, but it's a private school in Texas. Like, if you think about the schools that have the most people attending that school, TCU is not in the top 6 at all. They may even be like on the lower end of people who are actually going to TCU and people who, have alumni bases there. So when it comes to the profitability of these schools and like what exactly would get the most eyeballs, that's where, like, I don't know if a TCU fits in, but also how about a BYU? I think BYU is maybe the most powerful out of all these. And like, I don't know if that's necessarily translated in TV ratings, but the potential of that is incredible. Like, you could get an entire community and also great fans like me, because, I'm a diehard BYU fan. And if you want to get more fans like me, then you add BYU. Side tangent. But no, I think this is just a great idea from Andy, not necessarily great, but like a really good proposal. But I do think this year a lot is going to shake out on like which Big 12 schools are going to be nearing that Super League level.
See, I disagree wholeheartedly that this is a good idea or good proposal from Andy, because I don't think it values money enough, actually. Looking at 2022, which to me is the last like really good tangible year we have in which the school reported their athletic earnings, Kansas was 3rd in the Big 12, 35th in the country. Iowa State was right behind them, and Texas Tech was 5th. Even West Virginia was above Oklahoma State. I also think that UCF has to be somewhere in here in consideration. We talk Orlando and that recruiting base, and the state of Arizona. We've now left the state of Arizona out of power college football altogether with this proposal, and instead we haven't relegated brands out like Purdue. We haven't relegated brands out, which a Rutgers and Northwestern, right? Why are these schools still sitting here when Kansas gets left on the cutting room floor and we don't see them move into power level of college football? Which, before we move on into the Big 12 being behind the Big 10 and the SEC and why this could be a reality, Robbie, that is my next question here. In this format, if college athletics does go to the two conference realm, is that football only? Is there any way to do this with basketball notwithstanding?
Well, I think it would be really hard for, if they were to branch out and do their own thing, to go to an NCAA event. Like, could those teams go to the NCAA tournament if they just completely break away from the NCAA? And that's really scary. If there's a way to do football only, I think every school would rather sign up for that, just because, that just solves a whole lot of issues there. So I think that's what's going to happen. But you bring up a good point about the relegation of some of this. And like, this is where, if the Big 12 wants to survive, if the Big 12 wants to keep on existing and not be what the Pac-12 is, but also understand, hey, we might be screwed here. Like, I want this to happen. And I think that this is the best thing for the future and like how to keep people involved. Because if the Big 10 and the SEC do the Super League and they make their own championship, well, the winner, let's say Kansas State, they win their playoff, which doesn't include any Big 10 or SEC school. Does that necessarily mean a whole lot? I don't know if that necessarily will, because it will always be seen as the second most, like, you won't have the national championship. Yeah, exactly. And that's where this is what needs to happen to college sports if we are going to do this Super League thing. is the Big 12 needs to become the league of relegation. And I understand it's going to be impossible for all these presidents and leagues to sign up and do this. And I understand this idea has been floating around forever. But if you want to keep these schools involved and keep fan bases involved when they know that they aren't necessarily in the party, this is what's going to need to happen. Like, if you can find a way to earn to get into that league, you're going to care about an inferior product, which I use quote signs there because we love this version of college football. But if you're not necessarily playing at the highest level, it's going to feel that way. So if the Big 12 becomes the league, if you're Kansas State and you win, you get to go to the Super League. And if you're Purdue or if you're Northwestern, you fall back to the Big 12. And that's a way to keep fan bases involved necessarily, because I do think the Super League is super polarizing and would definitely ruin some fan bases' ability to care about college football as much as they should.
The Super League would be the culmination of the Big 12 just being that far behind the SEC and the Big 10. How far behind is the Big 12 actually? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team, and it's every day. Today's show is brought to you by Game Time. And guess what? When it's game time, you can go to the game because it's time. Or you can go to a concert. Game Time, you can buy tickets. You download the Game Time app and buy tickets to a concert. I saw Nick Shoulders last night. He was great. He's a folk singer. He's got a mullet, but he's got like blonde sides. And it was so good. And I bought the tickets last second for $25 a piece, which is a steal because that's what Game Time does for you. Last minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. See the view from all the seats in the venue. Lowest price guaranteed, and event cancellation protection and job loss protection. If I get fired, I can still go to the concert because of Game Time. Make buying tickets easy. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account at Game Time. Redeem code LOCKEDON for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Download Game Time today. Go to that concert. Go to the thing that you're going to go to for the tickets at Game Time. $20 off.